Good evening. You're watching Hard Facts with me, Toya Singh, right here on the show. We're first taking you to Sandeshkhali in West Bengal once again. Over the last few weeks, Sandeshkhali has been witnessing violent protests. This is over allegations of land grabbing, of harassment, and most recently of sexual abuse. Now, some women have come forward. There is a written complaint with the police right now of sexual abuse at the hands of TMC leaders. All the other three allegations also made against TMC leaders. Now, locals are alleging that their mistreatment goes back to over a decade, not 5 years, not 6 years, ladies and gentlemen, more than a decade. Now, as the TMC leader who seemingly ran the show on the island, Sheikh Shah Jahan, he remains absconding. This morning, the Supreme Court took a look at this entire case and the sordid details of it. Now, they refused to entertain a PIL that was seeking a court-monitored CBI or SIT probe into this violence. At the same time, today, the National Commission for Women Head arrived on the ground to investigate and speak to locals. This is after saying that the region revealed a troubling pattern of negligence and complicity. These are the words that she'd used. These are the words that the report used 2 weeks ago also. Now, tonight on Hard Facts, we look to understand what's happening on the ground and why, of course. But we're also looking to understand whether the plight of these thousands of women for who it took so much courage to come forward in the first place, whether or not that plight is being ignored and what more can be done. Join us. This is what we're taking a look at tonight.
अरेस्ट नहीं हो रहा इसीलिए महिलाएं डरी हुई हैं। अरेस्ट हो जाएगा तो मुझे लगता है कि अरेस्ट के बाद महिलाएं और आएंगी आगे। कहीं ना कहीं हमें इस पे जोर देना होगा कि ये जो शेख है इसको अरेस्ट किया जाएगा।
একটা ঘটনা ঘটেছে, ঘটনাটা ঘটানো হয়েছে। প্রথমে ইডিকে পাঠিয়েছে, তারপরে তার বন্ধু বিজেপি ঢুকেছে ইডিকে সাথে নিয়ে। আর কিছু মিডিয়া ঢুকেছে, ঢুকে তিলকে তাল করছে, শান্তির পরিবর্তে আগুন লাগাচ্ছে।
कुछ हुआ ही नहीं, अब डिनायल मोड में थे। अभी आप ही ने 164 कराया एक महिला का और शिबू हाजरा को अरेस्ट कर लिया। शेख शाहजहां कहाँ है? महिलाएं सबसे ज्यादा उनको एक्यूज की ना कि ये बंदा रेप किया।
তো আমাদের এখানে যেগুলো হচ্ছে, আমাদের উপরে নির্যাতন হচ্ছে, সেইগুলো বললাম। পুরুষদের উপরে কিভাবে হচ্ছে নির্যাতন হচ্ছে, রাতের পর রাত নিয়ে গিয়ে কিভাবে ওদেরকে উপরে টর্চার করা হচ্ছে, মারধর করা হচ্ছে।
Okay, to bring you more context on this entire story, we're going to have a panel of experts and political voices join us. First, to take a deeper dive into the claims made about the TMC. Let's hear the TMC and what they have to say. We have the spokesperson, Riju Dutta, who's with us. Sir, thank you for joining us again tonight. We spoke to you yesterday too. So I'm going to ask you first about your response to everything that's happened today. So we'll start the show just by focusing on everything that's happened over the last 2 or 3 days. Then I'll ask you to answer questions about what's happened in the last few weeks. So let me just ask you, over the weekend, there were schools across the Sandeshkhali region that saw booths that were set up by the State Agriculture Ministry, a number of different bodies from the government, and locals could come up to the body and talk about what they said was any allegations of mishandling, land grabbing that's taken place. They could speak to governments about it. So in one sense, it's very easy to look at this as the TMC taking a proactive step to help the citizens and the locals. But I do want to ask you, sir, can we also look at this as the TMC admitting that something went deeply wrong over the last few years?
With all due respect, and I want to humbly say this, forget what TMC has to say, forget what any political party has to say. What did the apex court of the country said today?
Right. So
there were two PILs.
We'll focus on that, I promise you. Today we're also going to have the BJP join us in a little bit, and I'll take that question to them because I do want to ask them their perspective. But sir, just answer my question, please, first.
No, see, the West Bengal police and the West Bengal administration under Mamata Banerjee does not have any fear or favor towards anybody. Before 6th of February, there was not a single complaint from Sandeshkhali. Apparently, whatever the political parties are saying, there is a huge political overtone to this, that they were being exploited for years. Where were the opposition parties then? As soon as the complaints were filed, Mamata Banerjee, being the Chief Minister and the Home Minister of the country, she did her Raj Dharma. She got 2 elected representatives of TMC arrested. Now, when it has gone to the Supreme Court, what did the Supreme Court say? Supreme Court drew a clear line. And the line was drawn based on the nasty politics of the opposition political party, especially BJP, on Sandeshkhali, where Supreme Court has categorically refused to compare Sandeshkhali with Manipur, refused a CBI probe, stayed on the privilege motion brought in by the Lok Sabha committee. So that it is quite evident. But one thing I want to bring your focus and your viewers' focus on something that unfortunately does not make primetime news. The load-shedding loser of opposition, or the leader of opposition, Shubhendu Adhikari, his constituency Nandigram. Manrega funds are being stopped by the central government. So we have organized Manrega camps all over West Bengal because the state government is going to pay the Manrega dues. Do you know, in Nandigram, BJP goons attacked that camp, beaten up women black and blue, and an FIR has been filed against these zamindars of the BJP. Now they don't want the state government also to pay the Manrega dues. And this never makes prime time news. This is what BJP is doing. Okay. And on the other hand, they are trying to go to Sandeshkhali and saying that we are protectors of women. Okay. What kind of nonsense is this?
So I do want to say, you're on the show. Please feel free to highlight every story. For example, the story you've just highlighted, by all means highlight it. I'm not at all stopping you. But sir, answer the question I asked you a little earlier. The booths that have been set up, how should we see this? And the reason I'm going back to those booths again and again, sir, is because we played out for our audiences initial bites from the TMC when this controversy, this story first broke. It seemed as if the TMC was at that point minimizing it. Now it seems as if they might be in damage control mode. There seems to be, sir, a shift in how the TMC is approaching this.
No, there is no damage control. We are responsible to our voters. We are the ruling party in the state. So what are the allegations? There has been only one allegation of sexual assault. That person is already behind bars. What are the other allegations? Other allegations are lands have been grabbed and certain portions of land has been taken, for which they were taken at the premise that we will give you, monthly remuneration, and those remunerations were not given. Now, these two people who are elected representatives of TMC from this area is behind bars. So what TMC is doing, we have set up camps and said, whatever your allegations are, come and give us the allegation. If needs be, the party will give you your money back, your rightful dues. That is the job of the party ruling the state. That is the job of the chief minister who is doing her Raj Dharma. Unlike, and again I want to mention the name of one Mr. Shomik Bhattacharya, and Saira ji is here. She will corroborate with me. He contested Vidhan Sabha elections on a BJP ticket. There is a woman called Ananya Chatterjee who was molested and raped by this gentleman and who did door-to-door campaign, and he lost the election because of that. Now what BJP did, who are apparently the front runners of women justice, gave him a Rajya Sabha ticket from Bengal. Can you imagine?
You brought this, so you brought this up, right? You brought this up. We've actually had this conversation. We've had Charu Pragya and you join us yesterday also, and you brought this up then. Let me just ask you, sir. You've said right now 2 of the people against who the most serious allegations were made are in custody. Let me just tell our audience's background context there. You're right. Shibu Hazra, Uttam Sadar in custody. But sir, you know the question I'm going to ask you next.
Sheikh Shahjahan.
Exactly.
Sheikh Shahjahan.
Exactly.
I'll give you a straightforward answer on your channel for all the viewers. Trinamool Congress or the West Bengal Police and Administration have nothing for Sheikh Shahjahan. He is absconding like many big shots of this country who are absconding under the nose of the BJP government. Now, I am saying this on record. The leader of opposition, Shubhendu Adhikari, has multiple times said on record that I have the location of Sheikh Shahjahan. West Bengal Police is looking after him. Sandeshkhali is under the 50-kilometer jurisdiction of BSF. ED and CBI has issued a lookout notice for Sheikh Shahjahan. Why doesn't Shubhendu Adhikari give these locations to ED or the BSF?
Okay, let's take that question. We now have the BJP with us. Government. So let's go over to the BJP. Charu Pragya is with us. Ma'am, I'm sure you just heard what Riju Dutta had to say. I'll ask you exactly that. So I'll ask you why it is that the BJP Shubhendu Adhikari doesn't share his location. But ma'am, I'll also ask you a more pertinent question, and this is actually something Riju Dutta also touched on right now. How do you see everything the Supreme Court had to say today, ma'am, where the Supreme Court refused to say that the CBI should look at this, that an SIT should be looking at this? They said, let the investigation carry on. How does the BJP see this, ma'am?
Good evening, Toya. Whatever is my personal feeling, we need to remember that the Supreme Court is the ultimate authority, and what they decide and what they rule is, of course, the final word. But at the same time, I would have been happier if our Honorable Chief Justice had paid more attention to this issue which is going on in Bengal right now. The Bengal High Court, of course, has taken suo motu cognizance of the matter, and they are going to hear it. Of course, I understand all of that. But I believe that it is easier for the state government to pressurize and influence anything and everything that goes on in West Bengal currently. And the last decade or so has proved that to us time and time again. Even during the post-poll violence, the same thing had happened. The state police, the state high court, none of them were able to help the victims. And eventually it was the Supreme Court which had to step in. I just hope that this is not going to be a case of justice delayed, justice denied. That's my only wish right now, because at the end of the day, there are so many loose ends in this case and they just don't add up. I saw snippets of several more women complaining today. Our NCW chief Rekha Sharma ji was in West Bengal. Those visuals, they are heartbreaking. They give you goosebumps when you listen to those women talking. And I think at a point like this, the West Bengal chief minister, instead of standing up in assembly and raising fingers at the victims, which is literally victim shaming, instead of doing that, she should have been down on the ground and ensuring that justice comes to these women who've been preyed upon by people of her party.
Okay, ma'am, let me just quickly ask you a follow-up question here. I then want to go over to our two other panelists. Ma'am, the reason I was asking about the Supreme Court judgment and the BJP's reaction to that is because the TMC is, and Riju Dutta, correct me if I'm phrasing this wrong, but the TMC is phrasing this as a victory for them, as them not having, plainly it being said that let the TMC, let the West Bengal government be given more time for investigation. Ma'am, you said you don't agree, you do respect this, but you don't agree with it. But I do want more. I do want to know more about what the BJP has to think about this, what the next steps are for the opposition there.
So, it is considered actually fair for everyone to go knocking on the door of the High Court first before moving the Supreme Court. Of course, I understand that. And if the Chief Justice wants to give the benefit of the doubt and he believes that justice can come through the West Bengal High Court, then I am all for it. And I appreciate his enthusiasm and his optimism in this particular case. And I think it's the correct way forward. I am just saying what I said because in the past, it's not happened like that. In the past, and even very recently, 400 notices were sent out because of the Supreme Court, which made a ruling which said that the state police did not act the way it should have acted. That is a fact. In fact, the NCW report also clearly writes the word distressing pattern of negligence. Now, Toya, if a state police and the judicial system in a state is written off as having a distressing pattern of negligence, it is worrisome. And the state needs to take account of that. Mamta Didi is shielding a criminal. She's shielding someone who was a part of, sexual exploitation of so many women. He's a land grabber. He's a known criminal. He could be a drug peddler. So much so that even ED went for a search warrant at his place, and the ED officials were beaten back by TMC.
Right.
Those are the things which should be considered here.
Right. So, Ms. Pragya, thank you. You're talking about, let me just tell our audiences, an incident that took place in January, and it's actually what first got our focus to the Sandeshkhali story. Mr. Riju Dutta, sir, I know that you were putting your finger up for a response. I'm going to come to you in a second. Let me just quickly go to the other panelists, though, because we haven't had a chance to go over them first. Shashikant ji, you're a former DGP. Sir, if I could just come to you to ask you, now, I do want to tell our audiences the NCW report that right now, that Charu Pragya was referring to, that is a report that the TMC has in the past called politically motivated. So keep that in mind. But I do want to ask you, sir, the NCW report. So as we speak, the NCW head is on the ground in Sandeshkhali. But there was a different report released by 2 team members who went to the ground last week. And what they had to say, and I'm just going to quote this for our viewers, sir, is they say that there's a troubling pattern of neglect and complicity, not just by the Bengal government, they're also saying, according to the NCW report, also by law enforcement officials. Sir, bird's eye view. What's your bird's eye view of this entire story, the manner in which it's played out?
Well, the bird's eye view is that it is, maybe its name is Sandeshkhali, but I think it's full of Sandesh. Bhara hua hai Sandesh isme, and we have to draw our lessons out of that. First thing is that the case per se as such is in Calcutta High Court, so I'll say it's sub judice, and the police officer would not like to comment on that. As far as the parliamentary probe is concerned, again, privilege motion, etc., that's in Supreme Court, I won't refer to that. But again, I'm going to refer to a thing. I think that that's going to be a very serious thing. As on date, we are living in a malfunctioning democracy. Now, here, while discussing it, what we can do, max we can do, is indulge in political mudslinging. Secondly, we can consider seriously about the plight of women and of weaker sections of the society, how they are suffering at the hands of certain persons, goons, I'll call them, criminals, I'll call them, who are in political power all over at various places in the country. And the third is that police force, whether it is investigating, whether it's ED, whether it's CBI, whether it's district police, state police, unfortunately, people have lost total faith in that. I have been a DGP. I served in police for about 40 years. And I know how attempts are there to manipulate us. And this case, which is in front of the High Court, the state is asked to respond to that. And I know how a police officer responds. I'm going to use again a very wrong word. Sorry for that. We police officers are taught how to sort of take the courts for a ride. Our reports are invariably motivated, highly motivated, 100% motivated. We police officers, unfortunately and sadly, do whatever the political masters do. We don't have any spine. We just go there. So this is the state of affairs. And I will say the entire thing, this is what is happening in Sandeshkhali.
Sir, can I ask you a follow-up question here? I just want to ask you, sir, and this is to Charu Pragya's point. Earlier in the day, and Riju Dutta, I do want to draw this to your attention. Reporters on the ground interviewing locals in Sandeshkhali. The locals were covering their faces. They didn't want to be seen. And the locals, in account after account, in interview after interview, when they were being asked whether or not they now felt like they had courage to come forward, they said no. They said they were still scared. They were asked about what you just said, which is that there's one formal complaint of rape itself. And they said there might be more. Right now, there's just too much fear. Shashikantji, I just want to ask you, I want to come to you to ask you, when there is, if we take what the locals are saying on record, if we take it for face value, when there is a systematic creation of this kind over the years, an atmosphere of fear, how do you undo it? How do you build faith? What are trust-building measures in the police that can be undertaken?
Well, you are talking of trust-building measures or CBM or whatever. That's not there at all. I've worked all over the country in all sorts of agencies that exist in the country. Police forces, this thing, that thing. I know this particular bond, the trust, is got totally snapped off. People will cover their faces. What for? People didn't cover their faces in Punjab when we had the terrorism here. We were talking to people. They used to come on the TV and the camera and they were saying the things very openly. When a person is covering the face this way or that way, I don't know what exactly is happening there. I'll say that the entire thing seems to be a bit motivated. Sorry for saying this thing, but that's what appears. Why not come out in open? Okay. Ladies are there, they are open. The BJP or the TMC or whatever it is, I'm talking to both of them, If one party goes there, they'll talk about the other saying, हमें वहाँ से डर है, दूसरी party जाएगी, कहेंगे वहाँ से डर है. There is a situation on ground all over the country, sadly. Thank you.
Okay, Riju Dutta, I can see you nodding. Let me just come back to you in a second. Let me first, no ma'am, I do have to go to our fourth panelist. I've kept her waiting for a while now. We'll come back to you. Give me a second. Saira Shah Halim is with us. She's an author and an activist. Ma'am, I'm sorry for keeping you waiting through the entire start of this panel. You're someone who has actively been involved in the West Bengal political scene in the past. Right now, we are identifying you as an author and an activist. Ma'am, I just want to ask you first, your view, and then we'll take you to deeper questions. But first, your view on everything that's played out in West Bengal right now on the ground in Sandeshkhali. There are two very, very different narratives that are being presented here. One is that these women over the last 10 years have been systematically abused. The community has been abused through land grabbing, etc. That's one view. But the other view is that this is entirely politically motivated. And this is something that we just heard the former DGP suggest too, that there is a political influence playing a game here a few weeks before elections. Ma'am, how do you see it?
See, if you look at it, it's not politically motivated. One woman, if the TMC is accusing that this woman is lying, so many women coming out crying, and where they've seen live visuals of how these women are being attacked. There's, now the cops and the civic administration is also involved, because here, just slapping, this IPC charges onto goons from the TMC is not enough. Here, there have been women who have been sexually exploited for years, and who's at the, behind the scene. They are the TMC henchmen who are on the run. Point is, where is Sheikh Shahjahan and his accomplices? They are all on the run. And here, if you look at it, if the TMC government and Miss Banerjee has the political willpower, she should visit Sandeshkhali firsthand and see the situation before TMC people make flimsy comments like, it's fabricated, it's politically motivated. There are also parties trying to communalize it. I agree that there's certain sections in the BJP who are trying to communalize it. I heard the Miss Smriti Irani statement that Hindu women are being attacked. Let me take once again, it is not Hindu women who are being attacked. It is the poor and impoverished women that are being attacked. And cognizance needs to be taken of whatever is happening, because this is a very, very big scam. You talk about land grabbing, you talk about sexual exploitation, you talk about Russian scam, you talk, when the ED went to search the premises of this alleged criminal, Sheikh Jahan, since then he's been on the loose. So why is a political system or the political party unable to nab the main culprits? That's the main root point that we should be deliberating and discussing upon.
Okay, so
why is it at large? You have such a big police administration. Everything can be done overnight if you have the political will.
We'll just try to... One second, Miss Halim, your connection is not the most stable, so we're not being able to clearly hear what you're saying. We'll try to re-establish it. I am able to gather what your two key points are, though. So we're going to go over to the BJP. Charu Pragya, ma'am, you had your finger up a little earlier. We are now going to give you a chance to respond. Take your time. I do want to also ask you to touch on a point we raised with you yesterday, too. The CPIM raising this familiar point. Why give it that communal colour? Was that necessary? Respond to that, ma'am, and also go ahead. You had a response to something said earlier.
Yes, and most respectfully, sir, I want to tell you that the situation, not just in India, but the world over, is of victim shaming when it comes to violence against women, any kinds of violence, sexual or otherwise. In this case, we are talking of women who live in a village, women who live a very different and a protected kind of a life as compared to women who live in cities. They are women whose entire respectability, according to them, rests on chastity, if I can use that word here. That's just how the society is, unfortunately. So if you think that they are comfortable showing their faces when they are discussing something as ugly as sexual harassment, as ugly as sexual exploitation, I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. So much so that in the village where I come from, to talk to a strange man also, a woman feels more comfortable covering her face. This is a societal thing. Maybe it will change, maybe it won't, but just because you can't see their face, it does not take away from the fact that their voices are distressing. It is heartbreaking listening to them. And please, we should not write them off only because we come from a background where we can talk about difficult issues while our face is clear. For them, it is not. It has taken them so much courage to even speak out about this. After years and years of exploitation, they could speak out today. And I'll tell you why they could speak out. Maybe the ED knocking on the doors of Sheikh Shahjahan made them brave enough to understand that if he's in trouble for his other criminal activities, maybe they can speak out today. All these activities which are happening in Sandeshkhali today, all the political parties who are opposing the TMC, who sometimes are even with the TMC when it comes to going against BJP, everybody is raising their voice. Every single political party, every single news channel and agency I know is talking about the plight of these women. There is not one person apart from the TMC who supports the TMC's version, and that is a fact.
Okay, let's go over to the DGP, former DGP. Sir, do you want to respond to this before we go ahead to other panelists?
Yeah, I agree with ma'am. The lady who was representing the BJP, yes, it's a fact that, like she mentioned about the village, possibly I had overlooked that angle and forgotten probably the situation as it exists in Punjab and in West Bengal and UP or Bihar. Here in Punjab, people are more forthcoming. Yeah, it's possible. It certainly is there that the women are scared. They feel odd facing the camera while discussing such issue. Well, I agree with ma'am. Yes, certainly I will.
Okay, thank you, sir. I did think it was important to come back to you to kind of tie that. Let's go back now to the TMC leader that we have with us, and let's return our focus. Sara Shah Alim, when we spoke to you earlier, the key point you raised was that the focus of our argument today should be, where is Sheikh Shahjahan? Let's go over to Riju Dutta ji. Sir, you were saying that, and this is something you said to us yesterday too, that the ED is looking, the ED should know. If the BJP leader knows where he is, why don't they tell us? Sir, these are all fair arguments, but I do want to ask you, sir, the last few years for the TMC, Partha Chatterjee, a senior Trinamool Congress leader, being arrested, mounds of cash being found. You may ask why I'm bringing this up. I'm asking you, sir, because this story we're talking about right now, story after story, seemingly hitting the TMC's image here, sir. Your party is a party that has claimed to stand for the people. Today, we can't locate the kingpin, the person who is claimed to be responsible for this entire mess. We can't locate him, sir. How is the TMC, sir, planning to turn this around? Mamata Banerjee, someone who said she stood for the rights of women. Where is she, sir? Why isn't she, for example, visiting the ground and speaking to victims? Let's just start with that simple question.
Mamata Banerjee has sent the four senior ministers to Sandeshkhali day before yesterday to hear the plight of the women. Point number one. Point number two, till now that we are on debate, there is not a single complaint of sexual torture or rape against Sheikh Shahjahan. Let me put that on record. Okay, so he is absconding because he is looked
I have
after
not
by
said,
ED.
one second, I have not said there's a charge of sexual assault against Sheikh Shahjahan.
No, I know you have not said. I'm just clarifying that. He is absconding because ED is looking for him. Okay, let me put that straight on record. Now, us two people, elected representatives of Trinamool Congress, against whom there were allegations of sexual assault, they are behind bars. But a registered molester against whom every national, like Charu ji said, every national TV, every channel, everyone in this country showed Brij Bhushan Saran Singh. He's sitting in the parliament hunky dory and they're giving lectures to us. And I will take a cue from what Shashi ji said. I have seen it all today on your channel, Toya, because today BJP was giving lecture to an ex-DGP on criminal procedure. But after saying that, if you compare, when the Supreme Court has said there is no comparison between Manipur and Sandeshkhali, but in Manipur is the most remote possible place in this country, and these villages where these atrocities happened is probably the remotest part of this country. There women came in front of the media and said their plight without any face mask on.
Okay. So one sec, very quickly. No, I'm not stopping you. You're making multiple points and I want to take the point you just made to the BJP. Let's get an answer. No, 1 second, sir. Let's go to the BJP and let's go to the BJP. 1 second, sir. We're not running out of time. Wait. Let's go over to Charu Pragya ji. Ma'am, 1 second. Very specific point made by the TMC right now and I want to get your response on this. The TMC's point, when you couldn't stand up to Brij Bhushan, an MP of your own party, a member of your own party, you've instituted some changes, but it's clear that those changes haven't reached the ground. His son recently being elected to head a wrestling body in the state as we speak. So not enough done. How can you say that your party doesn't stand up for women? Clearly the BJP is not doing enough is what they're saying. Ma'am, how would the BJP respond? Charu Pragya ji, go ahead please.
Yeah, I'm not sure if my network is all right. Is it?
It is. Go ahead, please.
Great. But let me begin first by Riju Dutta claiming that Mamta Didi has always stood up for the rights of women. I'll tell you how she stood up for the rights of women. Sometime back in West Bengal, a 14-year-old child was raped and murdered. She said that I don't know anything about this. Maybe she had a lover, maybe she was pregnant, and that's why she was murdered and thrown away. That is her response. In the case of Sandeshkhali, she stands up in assembly without any proof, without investigations going through. She claims that all of this is a ploy. She does not care about the plight of women, and I'm sorry, if she did, she would not be victim blaming not just the women of Sandeshkhali, even a
Bhushan Saran Singh.
14-year-old child who lost her life. Now coming back to your question, because आपकी सुई हमेशा घूम के ब्रिजभूषण शरण के ऊपर आ जाती है. Let me remind you that those who were sitting in the protest were not the victims, and the victims, the so-called victims, never went ahead and said anything openly. At the same time, there were many other women in the same federation who came out in his support, and I have clearly said this, as has my party, that we do not stand by any kind of assault. It does not matter who does it. Anything that's been proven in the past, the party has taken strong and swift action against them. They have not stood there waiting, because if you can suspend 2 members from the TMC, you could have suspended the third one. You shield the third one, and I will say this again, you are shielding the third one because criminal activities with the explicit...
Okay, but Mr. Datta's point when he raised Brij Bhushan, I think is relevant in one way, which is that the systematic sense of abuse that multiple reports have pointed to that was taking place generationally almost in this case. The fact that you now have his son who's just been elected. This, when we're pinning on the TMC, we're saying you're not doing enough to change the situation over the last 10 years. Is it not fair for the TMC to bring this up?
I mean, you've used the word elected, right? How does a person get elected? And do you really think women who are empowered, I'm not talking of village people here who are scared to speak out. These are women who've represented India at the international platform. Women who were just, because their candidate lost out in an election, they spoke out against it. I, in fact, wrote a lot about this. You again use the word elected. That answers it all.
Is your point that because he was elected... No, one sec. Let me just go back to ma'am for a second. Ma'am, when you're saying that... Are you saying because he was elected, that means that public sentiment is still with him? Is that what you're saying?
I am saying that those who were accusing him or everything that was going on there, one, there is a federation in place. If that federation, and the federation is made with the votes of these people, and if they continue to vote for somebody they have belief in, tell me, how is this legally sticking? Please explain how is this legally...
I don't think public sentiment... I think, frankly, there are enough examples scattered through history of public sentiment not necessarily being an indication of what is right and what is wrong, especially in the sense of criminal procedure. Let's go back to Riju Dutta. One second. I think, Mr. Datta, we've gone down the lane that you suggested. I want to return to this story, though. And I think it's very important that we spend the last 2 minutes of this debate focusing on what's happened in Sandeshkhali, because that is the situation we've chosen to focus on tonight. Sir, I want to ask you 2 quick questions here. Number 1, are we going to see Mamta Banerjee from the TMC reach the victims on the ground? You told me earlier that ministers from her government have been sent. Sir, Mamta Banerjee herself, are we going to see the female chief minister, someone who stood by women's rights in the past again and again, are we going to see her on the ground speaking to victims, sir?
That is completely at the decision of the chief minister. I cannot say that to you on a national TV. Did the Prime Minister go to Manipur? No. Will Mamta Banerjee go to Sandeshkhali? Mamta Banerjee will, decide in the days to come after she gets a full report from her ministers who are going there on a daily basis. Not 1, not 2, but 4 to 5 ministers, cabinet ministers on a daily basis.
Okay.
Second thing, what Charuji said, I take offense to that statement, that he has been elected again. So on national TV, when Charuji said that, she first of all said that the people who brought claims against Brij Bhushan Saran Singh are not nobodies. They are nobodies. They are Olympic gold medal winners. Fine. So the world has seen what she has said. Second thing, if tomorrow Sheikh Shah Jahan, after arrest or after being given a bail or whatever, if he wins an election in Sandeshkhali in say 5 years or 10 years down the line, will Charuji come on the show and say, I'm sorry?
Okay, so debates and
all charges are gone.
Riju Dutta,
No, if somebody
Riju
wins
Dutta,
an election,
Riju
then
Dutta,
we'll be
closing question for you. Sir, we have, Ms. Pragya, one second. Mr. Datta, we have 1 minute left. I just want to come to you with a closing question, sir. We started this show by playing out Mamata Banerjee's bite, in which Mamata Banerjee said this is a minor issue being blown out of proportion. Sir, as we speak, one sexual assault complaint has formally been registered. Hundreds of people, in fact, thousands are lining up to say that land grabbing definitely took place. Would you revisit that statement, sir? A minor issue being blown out of proportion.
I will categorically say this: any news channel or news boom is not a court of a law, or neither it's a police station. People who are giving media bites, I beg them with all humility, please come and lodge your formal complaints. Otherwise, as per the law in this country, nobody can take action. Point number one. Point number two, the vote in Lok Sabha vote in the next 6 months in Bengal, it will be a vote of revenge against the zamindars of BJP who have stopped the funds for Bengal because they cannot win Bengal politically, and they have completely demolished the federal structure of this country. We will defeat them, and it's the women of Bengal who will vote against BJP. Mark my words. I will see you again on this channel after Lok Sabha vote, where you will see in your vote percentage the women of Bengal has voted against BJP for TMC. Mark
Mr. Datta, thank you for joining us. I'd also like to thank each of the other panelists who joined us today, Charu Pragya, Shashikant ji, and of course I'd also like to thank the Sarah Shah Halim, the author and the activist who's just joined us. All right, we're going to head